Hello, everybody, and welcome to Strip Search, the comic strip podcast for April 2023. I am Pete Chianca, the co-creator and writer on the comic strip Pet Peeves, and I am here with my partner in that venture, as always, Dave London. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Pete.
How are things in your world?
Things are good. Things are good in my world. Although I guess as we're going to be talking about soon in the cartooning world, things aren't so good, I guess, with some recent deaths.
This is starting to feel like an obituary segment on Strip Search Comic Strip Podcast. Sadly, we've lost a lot of big names. I feel like every episode or so we're talking, and two big ones right over the last really just like week or so.
Yeah, giants of Mad Magazine cartooning, which I mean, I'm sure a lot of our listeners, or some of our listeners, or maybe one of our listeners grew up reading Mad Magazine, and one of the iconic aspects of it is the fold-in page from the back cover.
I remember it well.
And so Al Jaffe, who created that, as well as many other iconic Mad Magazine constructs, like the snappy answers to stupid questions gag. He passed away at the ripe old age of, I believe, 102.
You have to admit, cartoonists do tend to lead. They have a lot of longevity. Cartoonists. Do you think it's the humor that buoys them through their lives?
I always thought it was the deal with the devil, but it could be the humor.
One of those two things. I don't know if I remember reading Mad. I started too young. Like at first I didn't get it. I knew it was like a little over my head, but I really wanted to get it. And then as I got older, I started to appreciate it a lot more.
And then obviously the other one, Ed Koren, who also passed away recently. So famous New Yorker cartoonist who everyone I think is familiar with his sort of fuzzy drawing look, his fuzzy animal and people characters.
Yeah, he had one of the more unique styles, I think, of those New Yorkers cartoonists. You really could tell his stuff, at a glance, and it was funny. I mean, I really enjoyed his work.
It's interesting you bring that up, because there's a certain group of New York cartoonists who you don't have to see anything other than a glimpse of the drawing and you know exactly who did it because of the unique style. Then there's a whole other group, I think, that it's sort of they all blend and there's a very uniformity to looks of some others. But I agree, he was very unique.
And he was 87, so not 102, but it's not bad.
And I started thinking, I just went online just to see, just to remind myself of the others who passed. And I was just thinking, like Mort Drucker, who's one of my favorite Mad Magazine cartoonists, passed 2020. Jack Davis passed recently. George Booth. I mean, this is just sort of between the New Yorker and the Mad Magazine cartoonists. It's like, it seems there's been a lot recently.
Well, they're from that, that era that, sort of when, we are not young and we enjoyed a lot of these folks when we were kids.
Right.
So the fact that they stayed doing it as long as they did, is a testament to them. And again, this is just a sign of our advanced age, but I feel like the caliber isn't the same now in terms of the younger people who are doing it, but that's probably just because I'm old and don't appreciate it as much.
And you want them to get off your lawn.
Yes, exactly. All those young cartoonists hanging out on my lawn. Don't go on somebody else's lawn these days because they'll shoot you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's another.
That's the other problem we've got going. Don't get me started on that.
Yeah. Anyways, I guess well, that's enough of a downer for the moment. Can we maybe?
Well, I got something positive to talk about. Our guest today is one of our favorite. I think this is his third time on the show. Cagen Luse, who is one of the guys behind Comics in Color, which is this terrific festival in Boston. This is going to be, I think, their third one. So they came on for the first one right when they started it up. And he's going to be here with another artist known as ZeroSnake, not his real name.
Really? So Mr. and Mrs. Snake named him something else originally?
Apparently, yes. And that reminds me of, so in my day job, I recently compiled a list of dad jokes. Okay, we asked our readers at boston.com to submit their favorite dad jokes. And my own father, Frank Chianca, submitted his own dad joke. You want to hear it?
I do.
So it was, did you hear that Bob Peasalot had to change his name?
I did not hear that.
Yeah, he changed it to Fred.
I think you need to get your dad to come on and actually tell that joke. I think we need
Yeah,
to insert that in.
He's much better than me, but that was his joke. Anyway, back to our guests. They're going to be on in just a couple of minutes to talk about this year's festival, about what's changed, what's new, what people can expect, and just why it's so important. So we're excited about that.
Sounds good.
So if there is no further ados to be done, I think we will take a very quick break and come back with Cagen and ZeroSnake. Stay tuned, everybody. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Strip Search, the comic strip podcast. I am Pete Chianca here with Dave London, and it is time for our very special guests this week, guests plural, because we've got two. Boston cartoonist Cagen Luse is known for his Lunchtime Comix strip in Dig Boston that you might remember. He redubbed it The New Normal during the COVID-19 pandemic. He's also the co-founder with Barrington Edwards of the Comics in Color Fest in Roxbury, the only comics event in Boston focusing on stories by and about people of color. He's here today with manga artist and animator Tyrone Motley, maybe better known as ZeroSnake, who is handling the artwork for this year's festival and promotions. That festival is coming up April 29th, 2023. Mark your calendar at the Reggie Lewis Center in Roxbury, Massachusetts. Welcome, Cagen and Tyrone, to the show.
Thanks for having us.
So just we're going to get into all the details and all the background, but first I have to ask about last year's Comics in Color, because that was sort of the very first fully in-person version of the event. How did it go?
It was amazing. It was really like everything that I had worked for so many years actually coming to fruition, right? Because we had, we were supposed to start in 2020 and we got killed by COVID that first year. Then we did a hybrid festival the second year, which was, online panels and like an outdoor artist market. So those weren't really, those didn't quite exactly what I wanted them to be. So last year was really, to me, like the first year that we really were able to do a full-fledged festival. We had the panels and the workshops on, and the performances. We had the room full of artists. It was everything I had hoped it would be.
And what was the general response from the people all gathered together there in person?
People were very excited about it. All very, very positive. People had never seen something like this before, so they're very excited to be in the space. And and people are even more excited this year, having, now that we have one under our belt and people know what to expect, they're even more excited about this year's festival.
Right.
So what are you going to do with this year's festival? And that's a lessons learned from last year's or ideas generated by last year to make this one any new or different things going on?
Well, we are one of the big things we have this year is a cosplay contest. We're attempting that for the first time. So that should be interesting. Let's see, what else? We're doing similar as far as the structure, similar to what we did last year. We're going to have performances. We're going to have the fashion show. We're going to have some music. We're going to have the trivia contest. But definitely I learned some lessons last year. One of the things I definitely learned was to give some space to the programming, right? Don't try to last year I tried to fit everything in really tightly. And so that made it, a little bit more difficult in the day to get through things. So this year I spaced things out a little bit more to give it a little more breathing room. So that was a lesson.
Yeah, I don't think you anticipate till it's all coming down the pike. How, it's nice to sort of spread things out a little bit and let people, because it's a lot of things going on at once, right? It's not like just one thing after another.
Right. And you got to give people time to like move around. It's lessons learned.
And just you touched on this a little bit when we first started talking, but just for people who are late to the party and don't know about how it started, you talked about how you'd worked for a long time. So can you talk just a little bit about, the very beginnings of how this came to be? And it was almost sort of like a ground up effort, in the community. It started not as a festival, but just as like folks getting together.
Right. It started very organically. So the whole idea came from Barrington Edwards and I traveling to the Black Comic Book Festival at the Schomburg in Harlem, New York, which I just came from last weekend, which was amazing. But that experience just inspired us, to have a space where people of color to come and enjoy comics together and share their comics. And we felt like Boston needed that. So that I think 2016 was when we first went to that festival. And so it took us about 2 years to actually implement the idea. We kind of played around with it in kind of different incarnations. But when we finally did the first Comics in Color, and which coincided with the start of Black Panther in February 2018. So we started out just as a meetup, get together. I brought my collection of comics, Barrington brought his collection of comics, and we just put them out on the table and talked about them. And that was really it. And then, from there it grew and we started doing workshops and like artist talks and more panel type stuff. And, after about 2 years of doing that, we said, it's time to go for a full festival. And that's how the Comics in Color Festival came about.
That's awesome.
So now I'm going to switch to what's near and dear to my heart, and that's the artwork aspect, or art aspect. And so I'm going to ask I'm going to call you ZeroSnake, if that's okay.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, it's perfectly fine, man.
So let me ask you. So now you did the artwork for the festival this year. Can you talk about how you approached that, how you generate your idea and execution?
Yeah, sure. So I know Cagen for a couple of years now. Been introduced via my fiance and through his events. Great guy. So naturally, he came to me. He said, "Hey, Ty, I have this idea for his mascots." He was unsure if we were going to do 2 of them or the exact number. And so I got back to thought about it. Got back to him. I said, "You know what? I could do 3 of them." So you might have seen the characters around on the website. There's a couple of printouts in real life about them. But I really wanted to let each of the 3 feel different and unique. My thought process going into it was I wanted them to represent comics in color. So they feature characters of color. All of them feature some kind of art making tool, whether it's an ink brush, a pencil, something along that nature. And then on top of that, I also gave them their own distinct genre. So, some people might like knights and fantasy more, some people like ninjas more, or somebody just might want action and so on and so forth. So that was my thought process in designing those characters.
And so now I'm going to get into, Pete always knows, I always do this. I always ask about the tools that the artists use. And I know you're a manga artist, you're an animator. And so I always like to find out that literally the actual tools you use, the pens, the markers, the brushes, if you're doing electronic, what you're using. Did you start out old school and work into electronic? So just, tell us all about the technique.
Yeah. So this one, I did a little bit of best of both worlds. So I started off old school traditional in my sketch pad or with some pencil drafts. And I actually met up with Cagen again during last year's mice. Not mistaken, it was mice. Yep, mice. And then I was like, "Hey, I got some work I could show you." And I showed him like different hairstyles, different faces, and and he was like, "Oh man, this is cool, this is dope," And then from there, we kind of figured out what worked from each character, if we're gonna mix certain concepts. And from there, I put it all, into digital world. I work on a Wacom, a 24-inch, and I created those characters in particular using Photoshop. Yeah.
All right.
Pete, go on. No, I just ask a little bit about the animation. I mean, did I read on your website you're sort of like a self-taught animator?
Yeah, that's true. So I don't want to get too long with it, but it's fun to tell this story. Is that I figured out when I was still in elementary how animation was broke down just by playing and pausing an old Dragon Ball Z VHS tape like so much, and I figured out like, oh, animation is one drawing after the next, and then I kind of just started making my own stuff using Microsoft Paint and Movie Maker, and then I've kind of just been off and running since then.
That's awesome. That's the way to do it, I guess.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
So when you, besides that, who were your influences when you were growing up?
I find a lot of influence from a lot of stuff, particularly like world cultures, not just one in per se. Along with a mixture of like, I like Kung Fu movies and, the early anime, of course, as you see, just an influx of things. Yeah.
That's awesome. And in terms of your own work, are you selling are you doing strictly animation, or you have like comics, graphic novels, that type of thing that you're working on?
Yeah, so this is volume 1 of my manga of Unrivaled. That's available on my website, ZeroSnake.com, as well as if you see me at the event, a lot of fun, a lot of cool things going on with that. Trying to do a YouTube series in correlation with that. On top of that, we have like clothing and a whole bunch of apparel out the wazoo. So
Awesome.
ZeroSnake is one of the greatest like marketers out there. Like he takes his book and then he like you got to come and see his setup at Comics in Color, because he's got like stand-ups of his characters. He had how I first met him was we were at an art show together, and my son saw he had like these little figures of his characters, and my son was like, "Oh, these are so cool!" So that's how we got into it. He gave my son one, and he just been into it since.
yeah, that's true.
awesome. And these days you have to. I mean, you really have to be a marketer of your own work, because nobody's even, if you're lucky enough to have a publisher, or something like that, they still don't usually have the resources. You got to get out there and do it. So
that's the truth. Yeah, for real. You gotta believe in the project and push forward yourself, because no one else is gonna do it until you do it.
Right.
So
Yes.
So both of you can answer or talk about this a little bit. I just feel like this feels like such a positive event for Roxbury and for Boston at large. Like, it's just such a great thing, for this to be happening, and particularly now that it's become a regular thing. Why do you think it's important for an event like this? Why is it important for Boston and for the comics community here?
I'll let you start, Zero.
Yeah, so definitely. I would say that for one, there's something for all age ranges, whether it's like young children still in school, or older adults who may know someone who likes comics, or may even be trying to get into themselves. Just this is a great place to do it. As Cagen mentioned, we have panels and workshops and discussions. Last year, I seen something that I didn't expect. We had a fashion show, and my fiance really liked that. We took a lot of pictures and videos, stuff like that. So the community really get involved. You get to chop it up with some artists that you don't even know is in the area. And a lot of them, like me, have books and other projects that they're just in full swing. So it's really good to know what's going on around you. Yeah.
Dope. Yeah. So we definitely feel like it's a necessary thing to do. We really believe that storytelling, diverse storytelling is good for everyone. It fosters understanding, the more kind of stories and voices that you hear from. So that's really part of it. We also want to, encourage folks to get into the business, right? We want to encourage more people to tell their stories, make their own books, be creative. And all that stuff. So I want this to be an inspiration, and also, people learn some skills and meet some people. And the fashion show is coming back this year, so you'll be excited about. And what I'm really excited about this year is that we have a bunch of new people. Like, last year we had a bunch of great folks, and this year we have some people that I've never met before, right? Who just reached out. We have a gentleman who's doing like Spanish language comics and stuff, and we have some different points of view, even more points of view than we did last year. So I'm very excited about the lot of exhibitors and guests that we have. Excuse me.
So Kagan, I got to ask, we asked ZeroSnake about his work, so we want to be equally fair to you. And so just jumping outside of the Comics in Color Fest, just talk about your personal work. And the other times you've been on, we talked about like Lunchtime Comics and some of, your other strips you're working on. Can you just tell us what you've been working on and anything we can see coming from you?
Well, you're gonna see a bunch of stuff after the festival. I honestly, because I've been working so hard on this festival, I haven't had a chance to finish any comics. I've been writing a lot of comics. I'm actually working on a series about home buying. My wife and I just recently bought a home, so I'm working on, and there's just a lot of materials in that whole process.
Yeah, because
So
that's
I-
not stressful or anything.
only a little bit. So I tried to find a little bit of humor in without winning all that stress. So I'm working on that. My new comic strip that I'm working on, The Market, which is I'm going to be appearing in the Boston Compass starting in June. So that's more of a like a out of work millennial, more kind of a simple style comic. So I'm kind of, Lunchtime Comics is all, I'm always going to do that because I love it and it's my life and my therapy. But I'm also trying to do a few new things, some political cartooning. I've been putting some artwork in the banner, the Bay State banner. Yeah, I've been working on my space opera epic forever, and I'm still working on that one. My dream project.
Yeah, you need that one ongoing project that
Yeah, right.
basically has no end in sight.
Exactly. Yeah, I have several of those actually.
Yeah, I think we could all relate.
For definitely, man.
So let's just, we only have a couple of minutes, so I just want to make sure we let everybody know everything they need to know about Comics in Color. So including, your special guests and, who's at the top of the list in terms of speakers and workshops. You want to just go into a little bit of that for the folks?
Sure. The show is April 29th, and it's from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's important. There's free parking on the campus of Roxbury Community College. You can go on comicsincolor.org, and there is a section that gives directions on where you can park. We have some really incredible special guests. Aletha Martinez, who is an artist who's worked on Devil Dinosaur, Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, as well as Nubia, the Wonder Woman series, and a bunch of other stuff. I mean, she's worked for Marvel and DC and worked on a bunch of great stuff. So she's kind of our main guest. We're gonna do like a one-on-one interview style thing with her. We've got Joel Gill, who's a local guy, but he's does like history comics. Let's see who else. Jarrett Melendez, who is does excuse me, he does like a comic cookbook. So he does like food writing and comics kind of combined, which I'm really excited about. We have Tina Lugo, who is a tattoo artist and also a comic artist. Yeah, so that's our special guests. But like I mentioned, we're gonna have a cosplay contest. We're gonna have our trivia show. We're gonna do some panels on self-publishing. So finding out how to make your own books. We're gonna have a panel on Wakanda Forever and like the impact of Black Panther after 5 years. We're gonna have a panel on Black video gaming, being Black in video games, graphic memoirs, and then a comics writing panel. So we got a bunch of different stuff. And then of course, Roxbury Film Festival is going to be doing a film screening of animation shorts. Yes, and then we'll have Origination doing the dance, Nadra doing the fashion, and then we're going to have a gentleman who's going to play the violin, play like superhero themes on a violin, like an electric violin. It's going to be very cool.
This is awesome. This sounds great. We had Joel Gill on the show a couple of months ago. He was terrific talking about the exhibit he curated over at, was that at Northeastern, Dave?
It was at BU. It was amazing.
Right.
Yeah, great. Oh my God. Some artwork that I thought I'd never see, like original, like Harvey, oh God, what's his name? Crumb work and stuff like that. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, he knows his stuff.
Yeah, he does.
I was like, wow, the depth of this guy's knowledge was way beyond me.
Yes. he's one of those guys you can just you just like bring him on and say, okay, talk. And he just talks and it's awesome.
Right. No, it's a great opportunity for people to see him, and all of those sound like great
Yes.
guests. Well, we got to wrap up, but thank you two for coming on. We really appreciate it. I think this is, just like I said, such an important event for Boston and for Roxbury, and we love being able to play at least a little part to help get the word out for folks and get people out. And we wish you the best of luck with it.
Thank you so much. I always enjoy chatting with you guys.
Yeah,
Oh,
thank you for having me on.
Yeah, anytime.
This was great.
And everybody else, we will see you next month for another episode of Strip Search, where we'll be taking a look at the Boston Kids Comic Fest, which is yet another big festival coming to the Boston area later this summer. Take care, everybody. Enjoy your spring.